The Dark Presence. First mentioned by Daigo towards the end of Chapter 6 Season 1 Demon Hunters, the identity of the Dark Presence has been the greatest mystery of Chapter 6. However, over the course of the past 4 seasons, we've been receiving more information about the Dark Presence bit by bit that's slowly begun to give us a better idea of who is truly pulling all the strings in this chapter's storyline. So who is the Dark Presence? I have a theory as to who I believe could be this enigmatic villain, so sit back, relax, and let's bring to light the secret of the Dark Presence. I think it's best I just get straight to the point. I believe that Geno is the Dark Presence. Now I know some of you may be rolling your eyes because I also said this about the Wanderer. I fully admit that was not one of my brightest moments, but this time I genuinely think that the evidence points towards Geno the most out of all the other candidates for the identity of the Dark Presence. Although before I start connecting the dots and explaining my theory, let's begin with a recap of what we know about the Dark Presence so far. We first learned about the existence of the Dark Presence in Season 1, specifically on Day 3 of Daigo's pre-event dialogue when he was beginning to open the spirit portal at Warrior's Watch. In his default dialogue, Daigo revealed that there was a powerful and malicious dark presence within the spirit realm, and as he continued to open the spirit portal over the following days, his connection to the realm strengthened. As a result, Daigo began hearing whispers from the Dark Presence, which revealed that the presence knew him, his family, and his entire bloodline, and that it wanted to take Daigo too. Daigo then discovered that Shogun X, the one who binded the Night Rose, was also binded himself by the Dark Presence. The discovery of the Dark Presence's existence within the spirit realm made Daigo change his plans. He would save Jade, but it wouldn't end there. He sought to confront the Dark Presence, and in his arrogance, Daigo decided he would face the darkness alone. Once he defeated Shogun X and freed his sister Jade, Daigo went into hiding. The outcome of their battle had destabilized the spirit portal, turning it golden, and upon visiting it, you were able to find Jade there and ask her about the spirit realm. Jade claimed that the spirit realm wasn't inherently evil, but there was a dark presence within it. It knew Jade, her family, and it wanted them too, but it especially wanted Daigo. She finished by saying the Dark Presence has the Zero Shard and wants to use it to take the island. In Season 2, we learned that Daigo's victory against the Shogunate not only freed his sister, but also the Night Rose, who was under bondage for many centuries. As it turns out, Night Rose was actually binded by Shogun X, who she referred to as the puppeteer all along. When you asked the Night Rose about the puppeteer, she revealed that she used to trust the Shogun. Long ago, Night Rose used to train Shogun X's forces to be fast, strong, and unstoppable. This proves that most, if not all, the demons in the spirit realm were actually good. But of course, that all changed when the Dark Presence arrived. It binded Shogun X, and then the Shogun betrayed Night Rose, binding her against her will for many centuries. Despite Night Rose being freed, things were still not looking good. Jade was terribly worried about Daigo. He'd gone completely off the grid, and ever since Daigo learned about the existence of the Dark Presence within the spirit realm, he had become obsessed with it. Daigo believed that he could take on the darkness on his own, but Jade believed otherwise, and she turned out to be right. Over the course of the season, Daigo worked on carefully restoring the forbidden Sinister Mask from the Shattering War, and once he had succeeded, the mask activated and began whispering the name of the Demon King Asmodeus in Japanese. The Sinister Mask was a crucial part of Daigo's plan, and at the end of Season 2, it helped Daigo to finally breach the Spirit Realm. Using all his magic and the Sinister Mask itself, he blasted the Spirit Portal with an immense amount of power. After he'd finally broken the barrier preventing humans from entering the Spirit Realm, Daigo betrayed Fletcher Kane as he left the wolf behind and sprinted into the portal to confront the Dark Presence. However, that singular decision cost him dearly. In the Daigo's Fate cinematic, we saw a flashback of Daigo in a trance advance within the spirit realm. As the camera panned around Daigo, we watched as he got corrupted by the dark presence. Although instead of seeing the actual dark presence, we saw a different variant of the puppeteer that had gold on it. Nonetheless, Daigo had fallen to the dark presence's thrall and was corrupted by it. Leading into season 3. Daigo, corrupted by the dark presence, had reopened the spirit portal at Predator's Peak, allowing the demon forces of the spirit realm to return to the island. He returned to the island under the name of Mask Maker Daigo and utilized the spires to siphon the energy from beneath the island's bedrock to prepare for a large ritual towards the end of the season. Initially, everyone believed Daigo had willingly joined forces with the dark presence and betrayed the island. But after doing some investigating, Kendo realized that there was something wrong with Daigo. Despite the creature talking like Daigo and moving like Daigo, it wasn't actually Daigo himself doing all of these things. A dark force had dominated Daigo's heart and mind for a much darker aim. Following this discovery, Jade and Kendo believed that Daigo could possibly be saved from the dark presence. Although his name was Mask Maker Daigo, Daigo was not the one who was in control. The one in control was the dark presence, and Daigo himself even confirmed this. Once he defeated the Mask Maker, Daigo temporarily regained control over his body and had dialogue where he desperately cried out for help. He had 5 different unique lines which I'll show on screen right now. Daigo said, "Please, free me. His influence, it's too strong. I can't fight him. I'm not strong enough. Kendo, Jade, I'm sorry. You can't stop the darkness. None of us can." The biggest takeaway here is that Daigo reveals that the dark presence is a man, as when he refers to the dark presence, he uses the pronouns his and him, meaning Daigo has either seen the dark presence himself or has heard his voice. But that's really all Daigo himself had said or done that season. The rest was the dark presence manipulating Daigo's body. Alongside the Mask Maker's upgraded demon army, he also brought with himself the new lieutenant of the spirit realm, Mercenary Core. For those who don't know, Core used to be an undercover agent and mercenary for the Imagined Order. Her new outfit's description revealed that she was strangely sworn to the darkness, aka the dark presence, instead of being bound to it like the Night Rose and Shogun X were. Speaking of the Night Rose, if you asked her about the spirit realm at the start of season 3, she described the creature that binded both her and Shogun X and its thrall, otherwise known as the dark presence, as both malice and ambition incarnate. Fast forwarding to a few days prior to the season 3 live event, you were able to ask Hope about her visions. She explained that she wasn't necessarily having visions, but rather a sensation. Hope felt these waves of raw rage, pride, and malice, and she believed these waves were emanating from the dark presence. And based off of this sensation, Hope believed that the dark presence was mixing its energy with the Zero Shard. Then the time for the event had finally come. In the Super Showdown live event, Mask Maker Daigo emerged from the bottom of the Demon's Domain dojo, and for the first time ever, we heard Daigo's voice.
"The power of the mask is mine to wield. This is my destiny."
Using the power of the 4 spire monoliths surrounding the dojo, Mask Maker Daigo summoned the tentacle of a large monster from within the spirit realm. He seemingly bowed down, told the tentacle to serve the master,
"Serve the master."
and then his body suddenly went limp. The creature took a quick look at him and then straight up smacked him. Daigo had served his purpose to the dark presence. Now the main threat was the tentacle. Fortunately, with the combined strength of the supernovas and the assistance of Superman, the tentacles retreated back into the spirit realm and the spires on the island were destroyed, closing the portal at Demon's Domain for good. Following the event, the tentacle that Superman split in half began to decay. Its blood oozed out in the surrounding area, which began to both mutate bugs and allow the Onimorphs to begin their invasion of the island. The aftermath of the event also resulted in some NPCs getting new dialogue, most notably the Night Rose and Hope. When you visited the Night Rose after the battle and asked her about the spirit realm, she said that we had repelled her former captor's attempt to invade the island for now. Night Rose continued by saying that the dark presence is deadly impatient when it chooses to be, but otherwise it's emotionally unpredictable and vicious. She finished by sharing her concern about the 0-point shard being in the hands of the dark presence and how she fears the consequences that would follow if it masters the shard. When he visited Hope after the battle and asked her about her visions again, Hope revealed that her sensations of the Dark Presence had suddenly grown weaker. She said that she had no idea who the Dark Presence is. All she knew was that it was waiting in the spirit realm and continuously growing more powerful. Hope knows that they'll need to face a Dark Presence eventually, but she's really unsure about whether they'll succeed in defeating it. You were also able to ask Hope about Daigo, and when you did, she explained how she finally pieced together what happened with Daigo and how it was a similar situation with both the Night Rose and Shogun X. Then Hope proceeded to get really concerned because if the Dark Presence was able to so easily corrupt Daigo, she wondered how they'd ever take the shard back. Lastly, in season 4 so far, the Night Rose, Jade, and Daigo all have dialogue about the spirit realm where they collectively revealed that the Dark Presence is trying to shatter the thin veil that separates the spirit realm and Oninoshima. Daigo describes this veil as a glass wall between the realms. The Dark Presence is essentially continuously slamming against this glass wall, and as a result of this, the cracks have continued to grow larger with every conflict involving the spirit realm. If you ask Daigo about the Dark Presence, he says that he was extremely arrogant and that arrogance nearly cost him everything. Daigo reveals that when he confronted the Dark Presence immediately reshaped Daigo into his plaything and referred to Daigo as his champion. Daigo admits he was a fool, but he's learned his lesson and he won't let the Dark Presence take him again. Just like at the end of season 3, Hope continues to expand upon how her visions have weakened when you ask her about what's coming. Hope says that she's been painting the future but can't really make out what she's painting. All she knows is that the vibes are bad and she's really concerned about the fact that she can't see into the future this time. And when you ask her about the spirit realm, Hope once again doubles down that she doesn't know who the Dark Presence is, saying that they need to bring the fight to whoever is causing all of this in the spirit realm. The crew currently don't know how to reliably get into the spirit realm and don't even know what truly awaits them on the other side. But Hope tries to lift up everyone's spirits by saying, when have insurmountable barriers stopped us before? With that being said, Hope and Jones are now currently studying a piece of the tentacle to figure out how they will infiltrate the spirit realm. And that concludes most of what we know about the Dark Presence so far. So now that we've finally gone over all of that, it's time to get into my Geno Dark Presence theory. Let's start off with one of the most interesting things about the Dark Presence, that being his knowledge about the family of mask makers. Back in Chapter 2 Season 5 0 Point, we learned from V that the old Fox clan was being hunted down by something old and bad, which I'm 99% sure was the Imagined Order. They were most likely going after the Fox clan's magical masks, which were very special because they allowed one to travel between realities at command once the power of the mask was harnessed. The spirit sibling's ancestor that created the ruinous masks of power was also the Fox clan's mask maker, so the old Fox clan probably were very close to both him and his family. That could also explain why the Imagined Order were hunting down the old Fox clan, because they probably sought to learn more about the magical masks and the family of mask makers that created them. And it's highly likely that the IO hunted them down because Geno both wanted their masks and sought knowledge about them too. If Geno is the Dark Presence, this could explain and make sense of how he knew about the spirit siblings' bloodline. He was able to get tons of information out of the old Fox clan members about the mask makers, and that's why he especially wanted Daigo. Just like his ancestor, Daigo was arrogant and he knew how to create magical masks. Speaking of Daigo, in season 3 he received a new outfit under the name of Mask Maker Daigo. People immediately went into Blender to see how he looks under his mask. When his original face was compared to the unmasked version of Mask Maker Daigo, you'll notice that his imperfections, such as his scar, had been removed, his skin turned more pale, and his eyes turned blue. Then the rest of his body had a black and gold theme. It's pretty strange that Daigo got essentially perfected after becoming corrupted, and not to mention the slicked back hair too. It practically matches Geno. Perfect look, slicked back hair, pale skin, blue eyes, and a black and gold theme. Then we also had Korin that season, an IO assassin that seemingly randomly became the lieutenant of Daigo and his demon army. But I don't think it's as random once you consider her description, which says sworn to the darkness, for the right price. Being a mercenary, obviously her allegiance lies with whoever's paying her. However, it's awfully strange that she's sworn to the darkness and not bound to it. The reason I say this is because the Knight Rose used to be the former lieutenant of the spirit realm, and she was binded by Shogun X. But that's not the same case with Core, as she was simply sworn to the darkness. That darkness, of course, being the dark presence. And if the dark presence is Geno, that explains why Core's description says sworn to the darkness. The faction that requires its members to swear an oath to is the Imagined Order, and more specifically to Geno, since they're devoting their entire life to serve his ultimate vision of creating a world of perfect order. In Demon's Domain, there was also a symbol on the talismans that showed an eye and eyebrow that looked somewhat similar to Geno's eyes. I know this could totally be considered a stretch, but I still believe it's worth mentioning. When you asked the Knight Rose about the spirit realm at the beginning of season 3, she described the dark presence as malice and ambition incarnate. I personally believe that both of these descriptions match Geno's character perfectly. For those who don't know, incarnate means in flesh/human form, so the dark presence is the traits of malice and ambition in the flesh. Now, how does this fit Geno's character? Well, let's start off with malice. Here's a list of some of Geno's malicious acts. Created a faction known as the Imagined Order that kidnaps beings from across the Omniverse and experiments upon them. That faction had kidnapped tens upon thousands of beings. That faction also tampered with entire realities, which led to disastrous consequences, disregarding the lives in that reality, all in the pursuit of knowledge and power. He wanted to commit genocide not once, but twice, and nearly succeeded the second time. The IO have their own division named the Doomsday Division that literally build genocidal mega weapons. He immediately replaced and abandoned his daughters with snapshots of them after deeming the originals as not good enough. He grabbed his daughter, the Order, by the throat and nearly choked her to death, and as the Shapeless Man, he manipulated and then tortured Stellan without end until the Riftgate was completed to further his own goals. That's all of the malicious examples I could recall as of now. Geno is cold and extremely indifferent to the suffering of others. All he cares about is himself and his vision of creating a world of perfect order, making him incredibly malicious. Therefore, he could be considered as malice incarnate. This leads into the second trait, ambition. For so many millennia, Geno has been relentlessly working to create his own world of perfect order. He's had this strong desire for seemingly all of his life and is still determined to achieve this vision. His will is unshakable and he will do whatever it takes, such as the malicious acts I had just mentioned, to realize his vision, therefore making him ambition incarnate as well. This also ties into the name of Asmodeus. How does that fit into all of this? We know Asmodeus is considered the king of demons, so there's a big chance the Sinister Mask could have been whispering the name of the Dark Presence. If that is the case, and for the sake of this theory, Asmodeus could be another name that Geno might go by. The name Asmodeus means demon of wrath / wrathful demon, and is a symbol of how an unchecked desire, meaning lust for something, can lead to destructive consequences. This would once again fit Geno's character perfectly. We know that as the Shapeless Man, Geno was incredibly wrathful towards Stellan, torturing him, being incredibly impatient, and even claiming he doesn't care if the island split in two. He just wanted that Riftgate complete, which also connects to that unchecked desire leading to destructive consequences. Geno's unchecked desire / lust for something is creating a world of perfect order, and he doesn't care what it takes to achieve it. He will do whatever is required, even if it leads to tons of destruction. But Rez, Geno doesn't have horns, he isn't a demon. Demons in Fortnite don't always have horns. For example, Shogun X and his forces who didn't have horns, but were still demons. Geno could also metaphorically be a demon as well. Now I know some of you may be wondering, if the Dark Presence is Geno, how come he doesn't just take over and do everything himself? Geno just isn't like that. He likes to remain in the shadows and pull the strings just like he did back when the IO was prominent in the story. The majority of the time, he always has others do all the dirty work for him. The only time he really comes out of hiding is if he is given no other choice but to intervene in a situation directly, such as the collision event where he seemingly had to fake his death and let the IO's island management team collapse to get the Imagined Order completely off the grid once more. Speaking of hiding, the Dark Presence is seemingly doing the same exact thing. In Ask About dialogue from last season, Hope revealed that her visions and sensations of the dark presence had grown weaker ever since the tentacle monster came through the portal that Maskmaker Daigo opened. Hope's previous graffiti vision of the tentacle was a warning that her visions and sensations of the dark presence would be weakened once the monster emerged from the portal at Demon's Domain. It's almost as if the dark presence doesn't want Hope, or anyone else for that matter, to see who he truly is. Hope has no idea who the dark presence is, but she knows that it's waiting in the spirit realm and continuously growing more powerful. In my opinion, this dialogue helps prove that the tentacles we saw emerge from beneath Demon's Domain was not the dark presence. When you visited the Night Rose after the Super Showdown event and asked her about the spirit realm, she said that we had repelled her former captor's attempt to invade the island for now. Most of the dialogue about the dark presence after the Super Showdown event, such as the Night Rose's dialogue, left it up to interpretation about whether it was a tentacle monster because the dialogue was so vague. But with Hope's dialogue in mind, I believe that the monster we saw during the Super Showdown event was not the dark presence as some believe, but rather it was just controlled by him just like Daigo was. I also personally doubt that Superman would be able to take out the dark presence that easily. That tentacle monster would have been obliterated by Superman if it didn't end up retreating back into the spirit realm. So Night Rose's dialogue can be interpreted as her saying that the tentacle monster was just one of the dark presence's attempts at invading the island, and that attempt succeeded despite the creature retreating, since bugs emerged from the decaying tentacle and are now swiftly overrunning the island. Even Morgan Mist herself believes that the bugs are possibly a contingency plan in case the tentacle failed to invade the island. Going back to the Night Rose's dialogue, she also shared 2 more lines about the dark presence after the Super Showdown event. The first line was that the dark presence is deadly and patient when it chooses to be, volatile and vicious otherwise. The second line was that she was concerned about the 0-point shard being in the hands of the dark presence because she feared the consequences that would follow if it masters the shard. Let's start off with the first part, deadly and patient when it chooses to be, volatile and vicious otherwise. Geno is already extremely deadly because of his immense power. He's also really patient, but again, that's only when he chooses to be. One example is with Stellan. In Chapter 4 Season 1, we learned from Stellan that the Shapeless Man took him in as his own, gave Stellan his name, and ordered Stellan to go to the Oathbound. In doing so, Geno set up everything for the time when Stellan would be needed. After that, Stellan hadn't dreamed of the Shapeless Man for many centuries, until the day we brought him refined kinetic ore. That refined kinetic ore caused the Shapeless Man to return in Stellan's dreams, and he immediately began to torment Stellan and demanded he construct the Rift Gate immediately, showing the vicious and volatile side of Geno. We'd also seen Geno behave like that in Fortnite x Marvel's Zero War issue number 5. Throughout the comic, he was deadly and patient, but at certain times his emotions changed very quickly and he became incredibly ruthless. One example is with his daughters. One moment he was patient with them, the next he was strangling one of them. A few pages after he got tossed into the uncalibrated 0-point with the Imagined, he screamed at the IO forces to wipe out the resistance out of existence, and then quickly went back to a calm state when the Foundation and Jones arrived in his realm. Both as the Shapeless Man and in Zero War issue number 5, Geno behaves the exact way the Night Rose described the Dark Presence. Now let's get to the second part of Night Rose's dialogue. I'm sure some of you may be asking, if Geno was the Dark Presence, why would Geno be mastering the Zero Shard if he already mastered the 0-point? From what we know, Geno has spent most of his time mastering the outside of the 0-point. That's because the Imagined Order has always kept the orb intact. This allowed Geno to study and eventually master the outside of the orb, but that would mean he hadn't gotten the opportunity to study the inside of it yet. With some of the 0-point shards now scattered across the Omniverse, it gives Geno the opportunity to master the inner part of the 0-point shell and learn how it functions to further manipulate the 0-point itself. In my opinion, the Dark Presence being able to master the shard so quickly, since Night Rose seems to suggest he's doing it, further adds to the point of Geno being the Dark Presence, since only someone with such extensive knowledge about the 0-point would be able to master a shard of it so fast. We also know that the Imagined Order experimented upon entire realities, and that led to disastrous consequences. If the Dark Presence is Geno, this could explain why he's manipulating the Zero Shard here on Oninoshima. He's manipulating and experimenting on the shard, this reality, and us to further his knowledge. Aside from that, there's 3 other incredibly important things I need to point out that helps make this theory even more convincing. When Chapter 6 Season 3 Super launched, we also received the regular blog post summarizing all the new things that season. One of those things was the Demon's Domain POI, but what's really weird about it is that they refer to the dojo as a citadel. It seemed a bit interesting, but most didn't think too much of it since Epic could have felt like naming the Mask Maker's dojo a citadel and that's it. That's until we received dialogue from Daigo about the Dark Presence this season. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Daigo revealed that the Dark Presence referred to him as his champion. First his dojo being referred to as citadel, and now the Dark Presence referring to him as his champion? That is very deliberate word choice, and I think you all know where I'm going with this, but there's actually one more thing. When you ask Mizuki about the past and future, she very specifically says that a Mask Maker's hubris has once again set the island into chaos. Are things beginning to sound familiar? For those who may be new, in Chapter 4 Season 1, at the end of the Oathbound quests, Riftward and Stellan read off a prophecy from the exiled sages. Take a listen.
Thank you, my friend. This may be our only hope. These texts prophesize a beautiful monster enabled by the hubris of a champion. They say nothing of what comes next, unless that silence itself is the prophecy.
That beautiful monster in the prophecy was referring to Geno, as he's genetically perfect on the outside, but on the inside, he's a monster. As for the champion, it was referring to Geno's younger self. However, in this situation, it can also refer to Daigo. The Dark Presence called Daigo his champion, and Mizuki said his hubris led to all this chaos on this island. Daigo's arrogance enabled the Dark Presence. A beautiful monster enabled by the hubris of a champion. If the Dark Presence is Geno, it seems the writers may be tying things back to the story of the Oathbound and the Shapeless Man. The last thing I believe could further contribute to this theory is the big leak we got for Chapter 6 and its future a couple months ago. Everything that was on this list has happened, and now there are a couple more things left to happen. One of those being the last leak on the list that claims that the Dark Presence will be a villain all throughout Chapter 7. If Chapter 6's lore is all building up to Geno's return to the story, it would explain why the Dark Presence is a villain throughout all of Chapter 7 as well. I want to wrap this up by saying there's a deliberate reason why Geno appeared the way he did during the Collision event. Yes, one of the reasons was because they wanted to save Geno's reveal for Zero War, but there's still a story reason behind it. It was to show Geno's true inner self, a monster. He had to have done some insanely dark and twisted things to end up looking like that. Chapter 4 Season 1 was our first time witnessing one of the many dark things Geno does to further his own goals. Now I believe Chapter 6 is having us witness even more of that, perfectly tying us back into the story of the Shapeless Man in Chapter 4. If you didn't see my Chapter 6 Season 3 storyline explained video, I theorize that next chapter we may be returning to Reality Zero and a possibly reorganized Chapter 4. I truly believe the writers are tying the story straight back to Chapter 4, so we're soon going to pick up right where the story essentially left off, starting with the Oathbound and the Shapeless Man. With that being said, that concludes my theory about Geno being the Dark Presence. Let me know what you thought of this theory, and if I maybe changed your mind, or if you still think the Dark Presence is someone else. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one, Lore Keepers.